The official call is under review. Let's go to the monitor.
SEC football. It just means more. Now back to your favorite bearded duo, Todd and Marty.
What's up, guys? You look confused, Todd.
Well, all right, I'm good now, so I got it. And first of all, I think we're on Facebook right now live. So if you are on the Facebook live, thank you for joining us. Like I said, I could be totally wrong, but it says we're on here. So I think, Marty, if you want to check real quick, I don't know. It should be actually on my personal page. If Marty, you just want to go ahead and go in and share it on our page as well.
All right. Let me poke some buttons and
because
see if I can do that.
Perfectly live on Facebook right now, so we will see.
You are.
There we go.
I can go in and share it.
Perfectly live on Facebook right now, so we will. Heard that. Mute that. I hear enough of me already.
Right.
Well, guys, it's what we talked about. We finally get our live going. And we're only going to be doing this on our recap show, which comes on to you some part of the day on Sunday. Today, it's Sunday night. What are you laughing about?
Who? Me? I'm trying to figure out. My head looks weird, and I'm trying to adjust my camera.
Based on the...
yeah.
Yeah, so, well, we got that going. So that's another thing for us in the win column, I guess.
It is. That looks a little bit better, but my... It'll figure itself out. I ain't worried about it.
I ain't either. But, like we said, we're there. If you want to come in, join as well. If you want to comment as well to all our fans on YouTube, thank you for your comments, your likes, your whatever you're doing over there. We're loving it, and we're glad to be back with you for another great week of college football. And the halfway point is now over. And what a week it was.
Yeah, just a crazy week. 2 of the top 5 teams went.
You mean they went? Oh, are you not going to play?
No. God, why does that get louder every time?
Well, it played, so sorry about it.
I don't think they were upset. So I thought they were just really good ball games. Now, one of them I consider a blowout because they just got beat up and down the field. So we'll jump more into the Texas and Georgia.
Yeah, I figured once you said a blowout. So going into this week, after the final games were done, is there any game in the whole, not outside the SEC, inside the SEC, that kind of shocked you before we get started here?
I thought it's got ties, but the Miami game was a little bit better than I thought it should have been. I thought Louisville played them really well, but I think in this game, Cam Ward really excelled with his 3 touchdowns and kind of put his stamp in being in that Heisman class in New York.
Well, going back to it, UCF played a daggum good game against Iowa State this past weekend.
Didn't they get in a fight with each other?
That could happen. I don't know. I know there's a fight today in the NFL, but
hooligans.
It's Green Bay, so might as well.
Oh, is that your hooligans?
Yeah, but I think Gus Malzahn and that team, they played extremely well. And then another one was the UNLV coming back to win. That was a good one. But Gus Malzahn had their team in the winning position. Just some bad defensive calls late in the game. Gave the ball up to Iowa State, and they methodically moved the ball down the field. They end up winning. As the number 9, they were 9. Iowa State stays undefeated, which is very shocking.
I'm messing with my phone too, so if it...
Yeah, you can cut that.
But no, I know. The one I was more shocked at that was the number 16. That Indiana is still undefeated at 6-0, and they played a heck of a ball game.
That they did. Indiana was they're not a team. Top of that Big Ten. Not a team that everybody figured was going to be undefeated coming into this point, or even stay undefeated long more than they did. I don't remember who they got this week, but I know there's some good games again coming out of that Big Ten conference again this week. Because when you have teams like Ohio State and Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, I want to say is in there. I'm not sure. And then Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan. When you have teams like that are. Well, if you're going to die, at least die off the screen.
I can't help it. That Kool-Aid got me right in the...
But, so out of those 5 teams, I could possibly see at least 3 or 4 of them inside the college football playoffs this year. So the Big Ten and the SEC going to fight out to see who has the most teams inside the 12-team playoff this year.
Oh, most definitely. And I think with this week, at the end of this week, that the ACC got a little bit tighter. Because of some key losses within Alabama losing, and then Texas finally getting their first loss. So I think it,
I got
used to be back.
A lot coming for that game.
Right. Well, used to you unpack it, a 2-loss SEC team is sitting at home in January. You think Alabama's got 2 losses now that they're done, but not actually. They still have a chance right here. Hopefully, if they pick up a 3rd win, I think it's going to be on the outs for them, but they still got a chance.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who the committee takes, who the committee don't take at this part of the year. But some teams played great this week. Some teams struggled this week.
Mm-hmm.
But to our first game, which was very shocking in my point because we didn't see it coming. No. We talked about it. We talked about this game, and let's see. Oh, hold on. We talked about this game Wednesday, and I actually got this game right. I'm surprised, but here we go.
Didn't we? I don't think as far as us getting it right, it's just how one-sided it was. Wrong team.
Yeah, wrong team. South Carolina traveled down to Norman to face the unranked Oklahoma Sooners, as we said, 35-9, as South Carolina done what we didn't think they was going to do.
Well, as far as the offensive-wise, no, but defensively, they done everything we've talked about all year. Their defense, they had 28 different players with a tackle. They had 9 sacks. And they made offensive turnovers. Oklahoma had 4 turnovers. So I think the biggest story here wasn't South Carolina's offense; it was their defense.
Yeah, and we've talked about that multiple times on our show. That Kyle Kennard, is it Dylan Stewart? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go with that. Dylan
Debo
Stewart
Williams.
and then Debo Williams. Excuse me. Those guys are amazing on that defense, and for them to have that many tackles or sacks, as you said, for the second straight week, because they did it again, they did it last week inside Bryant-Denny Stadium against Alabama. They had, you said, 5 sacks, I want to say.
Well, yeah, you think just 9 sacks in one game? A lot of people don't get that in 2 or 3 games.
Most people don't get that in the season.
Right, and not saying that we had seen a really good Oklahoma teams at times, not per se against Texas, but in other games. But this just kind of just shocked me. And I picked South Carolina on our show, but for some reason didn't set up in my pick'em. And that's I was cussed about it all day. I'd look at my phone and Brittany's like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I know I picked South Carolina," but no. As far as offensively, they didn't do a whole lot. I mean, they still had 259 total yards and 108 through the air. But shocking, neither team had over 100 yards in rushing. South Carolina only had 74, and on the backside, Oklahoma had 53 rushing yards. I think I had more. Yes, that's total.
Okay.
Yeah, that was total. That was, I know some of our running backs in high school had some of that on one carry. I know Jamal Brock could run it from corner to corner and not be winded.
I remember seeing Jaden Killens break a good one against Cedar Bluff my senior year, about 75 yards, which he hurt himself on that play, but he still scored, But, like we said, 35-9, the South Carolina Gamecocks went into Norman and did, I won't say the unthinkable here, but they didn't let them score a touchdown, and that's big. Well, yeah, they did.
No.
One touchdown.
Well, the thing, too, is Oklahoma's first 2 drives were South Carolina's first 2 points. Their first 2 drives, Oklahoma scored. They caused turnovers and scored right there. So their first 2 touchdowns were defensive touchdowns.
Well, let's get to some of these stats. That's Lenore Sellers went 16 for 24 at a 66%. Hey, 125 yards, 1 touchdown. Demetrius Knight on the defense, 11 tackles, 7 solos, 1 sack, 2 tackles for losses. And then Nick Iamanawari, 11 tackles, 7 solos, 1 tackle for loss, 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick 6. And then going over to Jackson Arnold, which we say Jackson Arnold and not Michael Hawkins Jr., because Michael Hawkins Jr. played so bad this game against South Carolina, he got benched. So it was pretty rough. I didn't watch it. I was watching Auburn. I think you said you was watching this game.
I watched bits and pieces, but luckily I watched Auburn's. Never mind. Anyway.
Yeah. Going back to it, Jackson Arnold went 18 for 36, 50%, 225 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then Danny Stutzman on that defense for him, 16 tackles, 5 solos, 1.5 tackle for losses. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
What
yeah,
was
1.5
that?
tackle for losses. That is Knox in there. Thank you to Greg Watson. He said the U, and that's enough said. Greg's a big Miami fan, and they're doing their thing this year.
Well, Cam Ward's doing his thing.
Hey, it don't matter. He still plays for the U, so it still counts.
I've always had a little thing for Miami. I like the 30 for 30 Miami on them. And I always give Greg bits about it. But, yeah, I'm okay with the U. They still should have 1 loss, though.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and head on down to our second game. And this one was, to me, a little bit closer than I anticipated, but I figured it could have been a good one. If we're going to play transitions, they need to play.
It did play.
Oh, I hear it now. Texas A&M, number 14th ranked Texas A&M Aggies traveled down to Stark Vegas to face the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Final score, Aggies, 34-24.
Yeah, I think, again, like I said, this was a little closer than we thought. But like we said last week with Mississippi State, they didn't have a lot to look for. But, again, they did one thing that they did as well last week is they didn't quit. They really fought to the end. As, final score don't show it, but it was 34-24. They didn't quit. They had 367 total yards, 242 in the air, and 125 on the ground. That's really not bad. But when you're going up against the Texas A&M Aggies, who's in the top 25, you're going to have to put up a little bit more effort there to get a win.
But to me, like we covered in the post in the preview, we have had Mississippi State not being a pretty good team.
Right. But like I said once or twice, I think you said and I both said it, Van Buren is going to be a star there, I believe. He scored their 3 touchdowns. Well, they had more, but I'm just saying he scored 3 touchdowns, 2 in the air, I think 1 on the ground. So maybe while they're in this tunnel, they do have a bright spot in him. But then on the other side, Texas A&M they did it. I think Connor Wagman, whatever, he struggled. Yeah, he struggled, but Le'Veon Moss with 2 touchdowns with 353 total yards, 217 through the air and 163 on the ground. I think this has been the Texas A&M team we expect, throw it hard, run it fast, and put points up. But the defense kind of let them down, allowing this really not so hot Mississippi State team to put 24 on the board.
Yeah, and I mean, it can get better for Mississippi State. It's just going to be a matter of time. Michael Van Buren's playing pretty good in my opinion,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
but that is like I said, Texas A&M 34-24 over Mississippi State. Connor Weigman 15 for 25 at 60%, 217 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. But here's the bright spot for him. Le'Veon Moss, 17 carries, 65 yards, 2 touchdowns. Then flipping over on that defensive side, Terrion York, 12 tackles, 3 solos, a half of a sack, 1 tackle for loss. Now let's go to Mississippi State. Michael Van Buren, 22 for 41, 53%. 242 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Kevin Coleman Jr., 8 receptions, 89 yards, 1 touchdown. And then the big man, like we've said multiple times, and the bright spot on that defense for the Mississippi State Bulldogs is Isaac Smith, once again, 12 tackles and 5 solos.
Yeah, like I said, they do have a few players there that can lead a team to win ball games, and he's one of them, Van Buren and stuff like that. They just don't have it this year. I said they might not get another win here, though. But I think they do have a few building blocks where, here in the near future that they could be a decent team.
They do, and I mean, we just got to get ready for Mississippi State when they get ready. They're one of the things that you can't push them out.
No.
Let them be ready for let them grow inside the conference. So
yeah, and they're not going to away as hard as fought as they do in the games that I've seen. I think they're going to be around. They just got to get there.
They do, and like we said, once again, 34-24, Texas A&M over Mississippi State. Did you get your popcorn ready for this game coming up?
No, it was
It's a stinker. Good thing you didn't, because that's what it was. A straight stinker down in Arkansas, as the Arkansas Razorbacks just hogged it up. 34-10 LSU Tigers all day, every day.
Yeah, they did all the right things to win. I mean, almost put up 400 yards. They had 395, 235 in the air, 160 on the ground. And Arkansas was just there. I mean, they had 277 total yards, 239. They did throw the ball fairly well at 239, but then when they put it on the ground, they only had 38 total yards. And that's, and the crazy thing is that's not the lowest in the SEC this week.
No, but let's be real. Golden Boot Trophy up for grabs. LSU just did their thing. Garrett Nussmeier, 22 for 34, 64%, 233 yards. That's all his stats. Reason being, Caden Durham, 21 carries, 101 yards, and 3 touchdowns, led them in, the running, I guess the running back position is what you want to say, but led the team pretty much, did what he had to do. There we go. Whit Weeks once again makes our defensive MVP for the LSU Tigers. 9 tackles, 5 solos, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 pass breakup, and yet again it was near the end of the game. So let's flop over to the Arkansas side of this thing. As Taylor Green went 21 for 31, 67%, 239 yards, and 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And Andrew Armstrong, 7 receptions, 94 yards, and 1 touchdown. And that's it.
That's all I really had the Caden Brown stat, and Green had that 1 interception, but this was a lesser team than I thought they would. The best thing about this game that I liked was LSU's uniforms. I like that all white. It pops with that that purple and gold. But that was the biggest highlight for me for this game was with the uniforms.
Yeah, nice uniforms, but as you know, we saw pop up on the screen, Danny Watson said LSU will run all over Alabama in a couple weeks.
Well, I've got more notes than I've had on anything.
LSU looks good. They got a good, with that running back actually coming back into form right here this week. And then once again, Alabama not holding strong against the run defense, like I said was going to happen. I
Mm-hmm.
noted that. And then Dylan Sampson does Dylan Sampson things.
He did, and we'll get into that because I've got a whole tirade on that. But
well, don't get into a tirade. I mean, it was, I said it and it kind of happened. So, I mean.
Oh, yeah, and I said the same thing about the running back, and we don't get a lot of things right here, but.
That was one of them.
Yeah. Even though I lost in my pick'em.
Hey, I went 8-2.
And you're still in fourth place.
Shut up. This next matchup brought Ball State down to Vanderbilt as Ball State loses 14-24. Another Diego Pavia masterclass.
I don't know about masterclass. I think Vandy did struggle a little bit, which we really didn't expect on this Ball State team. I mean, 2-2. I mean, they're not terrible. 1-4 in their conference. I expected a little bit more from Pavia and from the defense as well. Granted, 420 total offensive yards, 275 in the air, 145 on the ground. They struggled, but they found a way. Pavia still, had his. Did he have one touchdown?
One in air, one by feet.
Okay, so he still did his thing, but they didn't look as polished as they have, like against Alabama and Kentucky and stuff. But hopefully during this week they get it figured out, because if they don't, they've got Texas coming in.
Oh, they do get Texas this week.
Yeah, they got Texas this week at Vandy, so they do have a little bit of home field advantage somewhat. But I hope they can knock the rust off and play. We didn't think they played well against Alabama, and look how that turned out for them.
Yeah, it's with Vanderbilt, you never know what you're going to get. It's like a box of chocolates, as the great Forrest Gump will always say.
From Alabama.
Yeah, this game, I was watching it, just going through the timeline on the bottom, because I don't remember. This should have been a late game if I remember. I was watching somebody else, I want to say. Obviously, I wasn't watching it, is what I'm getting to. But, Ball State jumps out real quick, 7-0. Vanderbilt comes back.
Yeah.
And then Ball State, at the third quarter, they tied up 14-all. And everybody's sitting here wondering, is this Vandy team going to get their fifth win, or are they going to crumble once again in a game they should win? Vandy squeaks it out, and that's Diego Pavia, 17 for 31, 54%, 275 yards, one touchdown, and also on the ground he had 13 carries, 82 yards, also one touchdown. But his bright spot, his favorite receivers coming into form is Eli Stowers, 8 receptions, 131 yards, and one touchdown. He's just keeping it on for him.
Right, and like I said, they did enough to win, and sometimes teams that do make a championship run, they do have their struggle wins. Auburn won national championship year. They had that really close game against Clemson. Had to win in overtime, stuff like that. So once your teams are tested and tuned into that, it's okay to struggle. But now I think we're going to get a super big test next week when Texas comes to town.
And so, yeah, definitely going to be a good one watching Vandy and Texas play out after all the stuff that's going on. Like I said, we're getting some more Texas worries in about 3 more games. But going into our 3 games of the week before we get into our other 2, these pretty much were just an absolute stinker to me. They were very, very nightmarish, I would want to say. All 3 of them went in 3 different ways. Just a quick overview. We will knock down all 3 of them individually. But Auburn, Missouri, terrible game to watch. Horrible to look at. Florida just absolutely beating the kitty litter out of the Wildcats. And then Texas not even showing up to play at home. So that's the 3 big headlines. Terrible performance from these 3 games, whatever it is, games. But looking back, just 3 games, very hard to watch. So let's just get into it.
Especially if you was Texas, Kentucky, and Auburn, it was really hard to watch.
And I like 2 of those teams.
I'm starting to get PC at one of them pretty good, so.
I know Kentucky just ruffled my feathers.
What
Wrong.
you?
In Missouri, they pull it out 21-17 against the Auburn Tigers. Noted this game, first of all, the headstrong quarterback, Brady Cook, leads the game in the first quarter. Goes to the hospital for 2 hours and then comes back in the fourth quarter and leads them 15 points in the fourth quarter to beat Auburn. It happened.
Which
I
is
saw it with my
nuts.
own eyes.
Yeah, I told Brittany we were watching the game, and I said, well, look, Cook's down, and he didn't. At halftime, he was still not back. And I said, well, he's done. He's messed something up really bad. And I figured the next shot was going to be him on crutches or something on the sideline in his jersey. See, that drives me nuts. You popped that up. Auburn win.
I knew it was. That's exactly why I did it.
It went to, but no, I thought Auburn's defense is usually has been their bright spot this season, but they really sucked a can of aerosol this week. I don't know that just our line just got whipped in and out. The back seven didn't play terrible. They allowed 272 yards through the air, but I mean that's. And one thing I had a question is, I mean, in fruition, Mizzou did win here, but I was shocked how in the first half, even though Cook was gone, is why Luther Burden III was not involved as much in the first half or even the first three quarters. I mean, he had one or two plays, but he's been one of Missouri's bright spots, but he didn't have a reception till like the end of the second quarter or so.
Which, you got to have a good quarterback to throw it to him. And that kid was absolutely garbage. Let me be real. He looked like Peyton Turd reincarnated. But Greg just asked us, do you think it's Hugh Freeze's last year in Auburn? And I'll answer this honestly, no. I don't.
No.
I don't. With that being said, the reason that I don't is because with the program that he had, kick back 5 years from Potato Man, what he did to Auburn, he's got to rebuild pretty much a whole university at this point. It feels like, because you got to find coaches, you got to bring in, even though he knocked off some of them last year. You got to find kids that actually want to come and play, and you got to build that winning mentality back up as it used to be.
Yeah, Greg. I think the same here with Todd too. I don't think. This is Freeze's last year. I think he's got a potential top 5 class in the next 2 or 3 years. But the fan base is going to have to be patient with Auburn. And in SEC football, they're not going to be. But it gets a lot of coaches on the hot seat because even after Bama lost, Alabama game hadn't been over 20 minutes. Brittany showed me her phone, and it was already saying people was calling for DeBoer's job. Like I said, maybe after 5 years, if Auburn's still in the trash can, if they even give him that long. But the next couple of years are going to be real trying. I mean, we're going to have to gut through this one. Thorne will be gone next year. I think our recruiting.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and we all thought that after Bo Nix left, and what we really had.
No. Potato Man ran him out. We were happy we had Bo Nix. It was
I love Bo Nix. Yeah. Did you see where he made another comment after the other Auburn loss again? Harson's made another. Yeah, it was on X or Twitter or Twitter, whatever it was, but he made another sly comment like he has.
You talking about Harson?
No, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's blacked on mine. I don't care about him saying that anymore.
But no, Auburn offense.
Go ahead.
Auburn offensively, I mean, barely even 300 yards at 286. Evened it out. 176 in the air, 110 on the ground. Not bad. I thought Peyton missed a few passes that were over fingertips. He targeted Lambert Smith a good bit, and he would miss off the fingertips or wrong routes, and he did make some. That one pretty Cam Coleman touchdown for about 50-something yards was the only
crap knocked out of him and knocked some sense into him. He realized how to throw the ball again. Yeah,
he did. He got blasted on that one. I'm not going to say what you said, but but no. And then again, as like we've talked about, we've not been on Missouri's high horse, and just to think that they got a super big win here, they didn't. Auburn is in the bottom of the barrel this year. Auburn's still crap, and Missouri's still going to be crap. a win, yes, is a win, but I don't think it makes your team better getting this win over Auburn.
Which for Auburn, it makes that road, if you want to make a bowl game, that much more harder. I don't see it happening because I say you lose to Vandy in 2 weeks. You lose that game, you're definitely not making it. But,
Nope.
I don't know. Put in Hank Brown. Your season's done with. Just put in Hank Brown, put in Walker White. Let the kids get some experience. Peyton Thorne's just washed. He's done for. But Peyton Thorne went 17 for 29, 58%, 176 yards and 1 touchdown. Antonio Kite recovered a muff punt inside the end zone, which turned into a touchdown. Then Eugene Asante went 7 tackles, 6 solos, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for losses. And then Brady Cook, after missing almost the whole game, went 11 for 22 at 50% with 194 yards. And then Marcus Crowell, 8 carries, 40 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, the biggest thing for the best spot was on Auburn's defense, I guess you could say, because they only held Missouri to 81 rushing yards. So if you want to find something in there good, I mean, I don't think nobody got hurt, so we're still the same and going to be the same. Who's Auburn got next week?
Kentucky.
Oh, that ought to be a barn burner.
Yeah, well, this week by Kentucky was a barn burner. These are pissing me off. Kentucky, 20 points. Florida, 48. As Florida pulls it off in the swamp convincingly, once again.
That's super shocking. We was watching other games, and I'd seen it on the screw, and it said Florida already had like 20-something points. I said, that can't be right. And I flipped it over, and Florida did everything right. They really did. Defense played outstanding.
Yeah.
I thought Vandergriff, he laid an egg here. I mean, Kentucky I think he had 2 picks.
He did.
And, can you pull up that backup quarterback stat? I think it's 0 for 1 with 1 pick six.
Oh, was it for Kentucky?
I think so. He come in and he slapped through a goose egg up there.
Yeah, there's the 1 pick. 0 for 6 and 1 interception.
0 for 6. Yeah, and it was a pick six. It was the prettiest thing. But yeah, Florida had all the numbers. 476 total yards, 276 in the air, 197 on the ground. And heck, if you would count interception yards, they probably had 100 plus there as well. Then the kickoff. They had a kickoff return that was Kentucky that had that kickoff run that was really good to watch. But I was just so shocked that, Florida actually looked like a decent football team. Now, Kentucky, on the other hand, they couldn't pull a rabbit out of a hat.
No, they couldn't. Y'all can probably see if you're watching, you see the comments are coming up. Danny Watson said, Florida's trash, and I don't know how Kentucky didn't win this game. They didn't win it solely based off the quarterback position because Brock Vandagriff only 12 for 26, 46%, 165 yards, had the 1 touchdown, but also had the 2 interceptions. I think one of his was a pick six. Let's get down here. Big game by the running back, obviously. Yeah, no, that was by the other kid that she was talking about. But yeah, you can't win inside the SEC when you're only throwing 165 yards and 1 touchdown, and then your interceptions are more than your touchdowns.
Yeah, and back to that Florida side, I thought, DJ didn't have any touchdowns, but I thought he played really well. His, with Mertz being done for the season, he only threw 14 passes. So he was 50%. He did throw 1 pick, but, you take the good with the bad. But the bright spot for Florida is, they got him down there. And then Jaden Bra, whatever his name is, he had NCAA numbers. Yeah, he had 5 touchdowns. He was really the biggest bright spot, for only 106 yards. So that's that.
There we go. You said NCAA numbers. His longest rushing touchdown was 10 yards.
Oh, well, but nonetheless, he still had 5 of them. So,
yeah. Also for that Kentucky team, Marion Brown had 2 receptions, 56 yards, and 1 touchdown. He returned 2 kicks for 115 total yards and 1 touchdown. And then here we go with Florida with DJ Lagway, 7 for 14, 50%, 259 yards, and 1 interception. Jaden Baugh, 22 carries for 106 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then Elijah Badger, 3 receptions for 148 yards. That is insane because about more than half of the receiving yards came to one receiver, but it is Elijah Badger, who we've noted before is a pretty good wide receiver for a very, can't call them terrible, I guess mediocre Florida team because they're not at the bottom of the SEC. They're not at the bottom of the SEC.
It's the other blue and
They're
orange
2-2.
team.
Well, you got South Carolina below them. Old Miss is even below them. Oklahoma, Kentucky, Auburn, and Mississippi State rounds out the bottom. Just weird seeing Ole Miss at that bottom state. But
right,
Kentucky
as high as they was this year.
Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, as high as they was, it's just jump off because Ole Miss had a bye week. I see where they were coming from, it being one of the top teams in the country to see it's like when water and oil separate where they're at now.
Yeah.
Just kind of shocking for Ole Miss. All right, so now that Florida's got that big win, I think this is going to be a point every week after we get done talking about Florida. Where's Napier at? Where's his
last
burner?
week I had him out of 5 after getting beat by Tennessee. I had him out of 5 of the summer. At this point in the season and where it's at, a 4-3 Gators team, don't know who they have left because I'm not pulling up the schedule right now, but a 4-3 Gators team, just turn it off. Turn it off. Unless you lose to Florida State at the end of the year, turn it off. First of all, you lose to Florida. If anybody out there loses to Florida State, your head coach, your AD, your quarterback, your running back, and your defensive coordinator all need to be fired. All of them. Just
and
get
water
them
boy.
out the door. Florida State is the worst, to me, is the worst Power 4 school inside the Power 4, all of them, right now. And that says a lot because there are some pretty bad Power 4 teams out there, and Florida State takes the cake. You get beat by Duke, and that's the first time you ever got beat by them. You're trash. You're even worse than Auburn. Get out of here.
Yeah, I'm surprised Levy's or what's his name? Norvell still got a job. Norvell, head coach.
Oh, yeah, Florida State. No, Greg said, are we saying that Kentucky was a big win? We're not saying it's a big win. It's just a win that we feel like Florida really shouldn't. It is for Florida. It is for Florida.
Yes.
It is for Billy Napier because it's an SEC win. We're not saying it's a big win. It just helps Florida keep that trash coach of theirs for another year and just
It's nothing where they should have tore the goalpost down or anything, but
for
the state of Florida, Greg, I think it was a big win for them. For Kentucky, it's another bad hash mark because you got Dr. Jekyll and Hyde when they play. They play good against Georgia and other teams like that, and then just really just take a dump right in the middle of the season.
Well, let's get into one of the other big game of the week was the nightcap of the day. That is an upset alert from the number 5 Georgia Bulldogs as they traveled down to Austin and manhandled without showing up even in the second half. They just manhandled the number 1 ranked Texas Longhorns. Final score 30-15 Georgia. Marty, take it from here.
So this is what we thought could happen because Texas really hasn't been tested all year. Ewers, he still played a decent game. Manning come in and threw the ball around a little bit, but I guess you can say Texas was exposed. But Georgia come out and put one foot in front of the other and just beat the piss out of Texas.
Yeah, I agree. But first, let me get into this before we talk about beating the piss out of anybody. Quinn Ewers is washed right now. Let Arch Manning play. He scored one of your only touchdowns, and then you broke his momentum and took him out. You can't do that when the kid obviously done something better for your team. Oh, let's go to the vet right here and let him get his in. No, you can't because he didn't show up that game.
And I think as well. He's he's going to be your new face when Ewers leaves. I thought they pulled a Florida right here when Mertz was still, when they were flipping back and forth with him and Lagway. But it's like Texas had no fire. They just couldn't, that touchdown there we see here from Manning to Isaiah. It was just a terrible game to watch. I mean, Texas had 259 total yards. 230 of that was in the air. So I can't math well, but this is the lowest I've seen in the SEC in a while. Texas only had 29 rushing yards. I mean, we had five teams under 100, but Texas had 29, and they're supposed to be the number one team in the country. I don't think so. There was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Another
Carson
big thing
Beck.
in this. We're just gonna walk over each other.
I'm about to step on your toe.
I ain't got four, but pick. Go ahead with Beck, because
ahead.
If you go ahead with Beck, because it'll lead into
Carson
my next
Beck,
one.
23 for 41, 50%, 175 yards. Kid didn't throw a touchdown. Kind of didn't need to. Didn't throw a touchdown. 3 interceptions though.
I get,
Trevor Etienne, 19 carries. 19 carries on 87 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's coming to form. Mike Bobo figuring something out with Trevor Etienne. Kind of what they need. If Beck ain't going to step up, let him do it.
So you thinking about taking Beck? If you're Kirby Smart, you take Beck out. I mean, that's 3 interceptions that most places had been sitting on the bench.
You would. But then you're playing a kid that hasn't played all year in Jalen Rashada, who's a highly touted kid, which, in my opinion, is better than Carson Beck. But I don't think if you're Georgia and you're Kirby Smart, you make that decision. I feel like you should. He won't, but because
in a
way I feel like it needs to be.
Yeah, that's crazy. Georgia's defense did it again. They had 7 sacks. They really put the pressure. They whipped Texas's line all night and was getting back there, making the big plays. There were 7 total turnovers in this ball game. 4 on the Texas side, 3 on the Georgia side. Well, the 3 from Georgia was all from Beck, and they still pulled off a 15-point victory, presumably to the number one team in the country. Georgia's total offense, 285, 110 on the ground, 175. Not explosive numbers, but enough to beat the number one team in the land.
Right. Also, that was Kirby Smart's 100th win as a head coach. But going over to that defense for Georgia, Jalen Walker, 8 solo tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackle for losses, 1 fumble recovery. And then Dalen Everett, 7 solo tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 interception. And then Quentin Ewers, 25 for 43 at 58%, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interceptions, and 2 fumble losses. Anthony Hill Jr. on that Texas defense, 8 tackles, 4 solos, 1 sack, and a half tackle for loss. Texas. What are we going to do? First of all, welcome to the SEC. You just met your daddy. But this kind of makes me mad because I picked Texas to run the table. I did not expect them as just forgetting to show up at home.
Yeah, that Texas was one of our teams that I can remember back to recording the first couple of shows that I don't say that we put all our eggs in Texas, but and I think that's even true with Alabama. And, Georgia's had a loss. LSU, these games like that are, especially in Tennessee, that's going to shake up the SEC and how pivotal it's going to be to win later in the season.
Right. Like I said, just a pitiful performance from Texas. You got to play Arch Manning if you want to win. And it's showing. Ever since Quentin Ewers is not the same ever since he got his injury. So at this point, cut your losses. He's a good quarterback, but at the same time, I remember a couple years ago, a certain quarterback from the SEC got cut, or didn't get cut, but sat down for the rest of the year, still got drafted, and is actually a starter right now for the Indianapolis Colts. And it's Anthony Richardson from Florida. And he cut your losses,
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, Sarkisian believes in him, and to this point, he had no reason not to.
Right, but like I said, just Arch Manning. This next game will go on the road as the 22 ranked Fighting Illini took down Michigan. Final score 21-7 as Luke Altmaier won by air and won by feet. Keep the Illini fighting in the Big Ten.
Oh yeah, I think they have a chance to take the Big Ten. Michigan is definitely on the down end. They scored 7 points this game. That's shocking for a top 5 team earlier in the year. Didn't watch much of this game, seen the highlights. 21-7, that's, I guess some people could say that close, but Michigan had 3 turnovers that led to points for the Fighting Illini. So, I mean, Illinois 276, 80 yards in the air, 187 on the ground. And then Michigan really put up decent numbers, 322 total yards, 208 in the air, 114 on the ground. They just couldn't make the big plays to put them over the top because there's no points scored in the fourth quarter. Illinois, 3-10. Michigan had chances, but they didn't convert on them. And if you're going to be a well-rounded team and win the Big 10, Big 12, whatever we said it was.
Big 10.
Yeah. Michigan's on the way down. Just let them get out of their way and fall. But
they're having
the
fun.
best. Yeah, if it hasn't been noted on any of our podcasts or the nation, Illinois' uniforms were the best in college football.
They did. They had some of the best wins this past week.
If you can bring that up just to show, if you didn't get to see it, I thought the detail work on that was amazing. It was a super retro throwback. Brittany, she didn't like them, but she don't like old school stuff like we do, so it's okay. But that was the uniform style. Then the helmet, I was just super. And I think when we shoot our graphics for this episode, I think I did leave that in there because it was just so much, so retro for me that I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like them. I'm going to pull it up right now. Can't actually find it. Here's a decent one.
There should have been. Well, I know there's one for our graphics when we post this. There's a good one for it.
You kind of see them right there. These helmets actually took 2 hours to make individually, but very good. Detail work on everything right there.
Yeah, just love that old. That's not old school. That's old school. That was the old leather helmet. The nothing on the jerseys was just a fun throwback. I think probably could be one of the best in the year. I think at the end of the year, I want to get us 4 or 5 uniforms and let the fans pick what they think's the best. I know we like the Oregon blackouts. Them will definitely be in there and stuff like that.
Definitely. Now let's just get on to this last game we have. And that game brought us down to Neyland Stadium as the number 7 Alabama Crimson Tide went to face the Tennessee Volunteers, the 11th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee finds it out, figures it out, 24-17. Tennessee takes it.
Man, best game of the week, especially SEC wise. Had the biggest numbers for top 25 implications, and as the playoff.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, and it was Justice Jam and Jalen only had 75 yards in the backfield, which is a super shocker. Which we knew Tennessee had that stellar defense. 314 total for Alabama and 239 in the air. Jalen Milroe did his thing. 2 picks really hurt him. Still almost 200. He's starting to have Scooby-Doo flashes to other quarterbacks.
AJ McCarron,
but no,
which he still won an national championship.
yeah, Jalen Milroe, he won't get another one if he keeps up like this. But I thought, the game was silly as far as this. I thought it was a good back and forth ball game. But I don't think, listen to how make sure I say it right. Tennessee didn't win this game. I think Alabama lost it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think Jalen Milroe lost the game. Let me be real. Let me say this, and I say that to say this reason. Jalen Milroe, 25 for 45. He threw 45 times for 55%. Still had 239 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Here's the kicker. The 17-year-old Ryan Williams, 8 receptions, 73 yards, and 1 touchdown. Not bad numbers. Jalen Milroe targeted him 16 times. 16 times. So what he was doing, he's only looking. He can't play. He don't know how to play. He don't know what he's doing without him because I guess he's a playmaker, which he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he is. He's only looking one way. So with 16 targets, and he only caught half of them.
Yeah. So, but you're taking away. He's focusing on the electric Ryan Williams, but I think really is he took all them passes, but you're still missing out on your key players like Bernard Law and stuff like that. When they were showing replays and differences in the games, it looked like he was trying to make a plays for Williams. He was trying to force the ball, and I think that's why he threw the 2 picks. He was getting in a rush. He wasn't working his. Like I said, I've never been a quarterback or anything. I'm not saying, but again, Tennessee's defense had him figured out, and they were rushing. They were getting back to him, and he would scramble and make them passes. And the 2 interceptions really hurt Alabama in the end.
Yeah, they did. And just going back to some of these numbers for Alabama, Deontay Lawson, 11 tackles, 3 solos, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Flipping over to the Tennessee side, Nico whatever his name is, 14 for 27, 51%. I just can't figure out words today. 194 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But like I said before, you're not going to win this game if you don't stop Dylan Sampson. 26 carries, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 fumble lost.
Yeah, and we both said it. If you don't put a hat on Sampson, he's gonna ruin your day. And I think he spoiled Alabama's SEC championship here, but maybe not the playoffs. So we talked about that before.
Right now, they're below Vanderbilt, and they won't ever win that head-to-head. So, yeah, I'd say so.
But Tennessee fights offensively 408 yards, 194 in the air, and 214 on the ground. They pounded the rock all day. And Alabama couldn't stop them. And we know Alabama's line on both sides of the ball has been really sketchy at times this year. But I think there was, we have said there's 1 or 2 plays that determines a game. Well, Alabama had 15 penalties for 115 yards. None bigger than in the fourth quarter with under 2 minutes when Kendrick Law got that stupid penalty, the personal foul, acting a hooligan, whatever you want to call it. I mean,
Pretty
yes,
much.
I know we went down the whole rabbit hole with Malachi Moore, and we jotted him for being a senior, being a captain. But granted, this is unacceptable, even for a freshman in Law who's one of their better players. I think with the culture is changing down there. Yes, we know it's not Nick Saban, but I think this could have led. If you had better leadership and Malachi not making a fool of himself a week ago, that, Kendrick thought. Now, we saw the play after we watched the replay. Yes, the Tennessee player antagonized him or whatever, but the second person always get caught. And I think that was a big turnover for Alabama, really put them out of it was 4th and whatever. I think they had a better play call, but it turned into like 4th and 11. Really put a sour note in that loss, and I think that was one of the plays that helped determine this game was a penalty by Alabama.
Yeah, I agree, And as we want to thank everybody for listening to our games that we've had It's the recap so everybody and their mama knows what's about to happen. It's the Under Review podcast stat standings. Starting off, as we always do, with passing yards. Your leader is still Jackson Dart, 2,384 yards. Coming in second is Garrett Nussmeier, 2,222 yards. He's catching up. And then Carson Beck in third with 1,993 yards. Moving over to passing touchdowns, we have Garrett Nussmeier at 18, at first with 18. Carson Beck sitting at 2 with 15 still, and then Jackson Dart third with 14. Running over to rushing yards, Dylan Sampson stays atop 838 yards. Le'Veon Moss, 674 yards, and then Henry Parrish Jr., 612 yards. Side note, I have both of those last two running backs, on my fantasy team. Dylan Sampson, 17 touchdowns. You're not catching the man. Jalen Milroe is a running back, apparently. He don't know how to play quarterback. 11 touchdowns running the ball. And then Jaquindon Jackson, 10 touchdowns on the ground. Let's run over to receiving yards. Oh, wait. Who would have thought any less? Trey Harris leading, 987 yards. Ryan Williams in second, 649 yards. And then Andrew Armstrong is in third at 646 yards. Touchdowns. Sole leader, Ryan Williams. In second, we have Keandre Lambert-Smith, Auburn, Kyron Lacey from LSU, Trey Harris from Mississippi State, or from Ole Miss. And then third, we have a somewhat tie, is Luther Burden III from Missouri, Kevin Coleman Jr. from Mississippi State, Antoine Wells Jr. from Ole Miss, Dylan Bell from Georgia, and Isaiah Bunn, all with 4, tied in that third position. And that is your Under Review stat standings.
That was a fun one.
That was a long one. Well, before we get out of here, let's take this quick second and get a word from our sponsor, and then we'll send us out of here.
This episode of the Under Review podcast is brought to you by Chuck's Heating and Air. Chuck has over 40 years of service and experience with residential services. He services most makes and models. He is Alabama licensed, bonded, and insured, and locally owned and operated. Are you hot and you're supposed to be cool? Are you cool and you're supposed to be hot? Then you've got a problem. Call Chuck. Area code 256-892-2757. Again, 256-892-2757. Chuck's Heating and Air.
Again, thank you, Chuck's Heating and Air, for being our sponsor. This week, to me, was an absolute bad one. I will say it. So many great games had a position to be great games. And then they just went out and just laid the golden egg every single time. And that is to be in games that were supposed to be blowouts and come back and be close, but that was the only reason it was close because of the refs. Florida just doing what somebody would do to Florida. To me, I was very underwhelming. Not having to work this past weekend, and I was so excited to watch great football like the last 2 weeks. And then this was just a stinker.
I said the best game was the Alabama-Tennessee game. It was close, but it was just for an Auburn fan, it was hard to watch, especially coming back and getting beat after leading in the fourth quarter. With all being said, another week starts tomorrow, so we'll be at it. First of all, just as if some of you know, some of you don't know, our merch went on sale last week. We've had great response. We've got a couple hats out, some shirts, some combo deals. Check us out on our website, Instagram. Get some prices, get some merch, get you a hat. It's football season. You like it. I like it. Todd wears it. I wear it. Chuck's Heating and Air wears it. And
even
you
can too.
Yeah, wives wear it. She don't wear a hat, but.
Oh, I didn't know that. She could have just gave it back. I'd have turned around and sold it.
I'll use it for promotional purposes.
Yeah. Thank you always for listening. Had a long one. We answered some Facebook questions. We went live for the first time, so we had to figure that out. That's on me. But we do want to thank y'all for coming in and joining us. I want to thank Chuck's Heating and Air, as always, for being our warm in the winter and our cold in the summers. And then special thanks to Jughead and Chicken Legs. Have they put out a podcast? I hadn't seen their episode Friday.
Yeah, I think they were live Friday. Yeah, I think they were live Friday. I talked to him for a second or got a comment on their post. Hunter and Nick. I can't think of the boxing kid and somebody else, but it's always a good listen.
Nathan Cole and David Graves, I want to say.
Yeah.
Don't hold me to I think that's their names. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was Nathan Cole.
Nathan always has a concussion, so.
Yeah, I think he had a black eye or something going into this week or something.
Well, if Nick would quit punching him, the kid wouldn't have any problems. But that's beside the point.
Nick went 5-0, and he's training this kid, and he's already got a black eye.
Yeah. Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Anyways, also thank you to HCS Media. Thank you to Jud Dickinson for everything you do. And also, as well, not forgetting you out, Brandon Trammell for everything that we have in store. Hint, he's our special guest picker next week. There's an alert. Running at right at an hour because we've been running and talking. But thanks for listening. And just meet us at the monitor. We go under review.
Thanks for making the call to go under review. Join us next time as we go to the monitors. Until then, keep your flag handy.